systems, branching and merging, pull requests, code reviews, and conventions and practices. Most of this should be pretty well. I hope most of you guys are familiar with these after this workshop because it is important when dealing with these projects. So first off, what is Git? So Git's just a type of version control. It's necessary for coordinating work with other team members. So for those who have done 343, it should be quite familiar with you. So yes, Git is Control Z and Control Y supercharged. It's pretty much like a time machine when dealing with code. It is distributed version control system, so that just means that whatever every change that you have on your computer, your teammates have on their computers as well. It allows us to help track modifications. Also, very important, it just helps prevent source codes from getting completely nuked. This is because, like I said, if you are not happy with a change or a change that does break something on the code base, you can always revert it. Allows for a smooth flow of changes to the code base and allows us to work smoothly as a team. So yeah, we normally would have a Git flow. Nodes I wouldn't say is too important. This is just like a visualization of the Git branch. Normally we would have a branch called master. And this on this branch is where we would set up where we could set up things like continuous deployment, where like any code being pushed to this branch can be automatically deployed to the cloud. And then we would have another branch called development branch. And this is where, let's say, you're trying to implement new features, where you could really like nuke this branch. Like whatever, try anything stupid, just push that branch. As long as it's on development. Or you can call it sandbox. And then feature branches are sort of like the branches that you branch off main to develop your own features. One that's not in this slide here that we could have as well is another one called staging. That's where you can do more testing if you'd like. Yeah, so that's it for Git Flow. Next we have GitHub. So what GitHub is just a cloud service that just allows us to store our code in repos. Yes, its main purpose is just to allow us to share code with others. Um, Other things you can do on GitHub is just explore other open source software. There is, if you actually have a look at GitHub Explore page, there is actually quite a lot of free tutorials and resources available on GitHub. It's actually probably the maybe second place after documentation. I like to have a look. Also lets you see like code written by others. Also highly recommend if you haven't claimed your GitHub Student Developer Pack to go claim it because you do have access to a lot of services that are normally paid for. Like if well personally I use VS Code, but if you're a fan of like JetBrains, that you have access to JetBrains Pro and stuff like that, or maybe Front End Masters. There are a few free courses there as well on GitHub Student Developer Pack. Next, we have PRs and code reviews. So a PR is where a pull request is where a contributor is ready to begin merging new code changes with the main project repository. This is generally recommended rather than just merging your code into the main branch, because this way you can get code reviews. And this is good because you can get feedback on your code written by others, and there's just a smaller chance of shipping bad code or broken code to the main code base with more code reviews. Um, Also, likewise, you can provide your feedback to others. I think this is a great way to grow as a team because you can read code written by others and they can read yours. I, well, personally, I think that reading others' codes is like one of the one of my main ways of learning how to code. Yes, and please note this is different depending on the cloud provider uses store code. So PRs are actually not a feature of Git. It's a feature of GitHub. So whether you choose a cloud provider like GitHub or Atlassian or GitLab, they're all going to be different. So this is just mainly for GitHub at the moment because that's what we're with. Yes, and then next we would have issues and ticketing systems. So that's just under the issues tab on GitHub. It looks slightly different for Jira. This is important because it just helps us organize and prioritize issues with projects. We also don't want more than one team working on the same issue or doing double the work. So this is why it is very, very important that when you start work on an issue, you assign yourself to that issue or your team. Um, and also helps you stay up to date. And it's also very important for sprint planning. Yep. So Kanban boards, just describing the different stages of progress. So yes, Scrums and Sprints. So this is an agile framework that we'll be using. So this picture just describes a sprint. So in the sprint, sorry, in the framework. So the key events that we have are backlog organization, sprint planning, sprint daily stand-up, sprint review, and sprint retrospective. So sprint planning is just sort of where, remember how we talked about issues? That would be where we would sit down and discuss like what issues would have to be done within the next sprint. And yes, a sprint would be just a given time period that we are trying to get things done by. This is very important in software in agile development because like if you have all the time in the world, there's not really. I mean, everything can. I think that a lot of things can be done that way, but most of the time you're always in a really tight schedule. What we're doing now, stand up. Generally, at like if you're working outside, you would have this twice a day. So once in the morning and once before you leave. This is sort of just where you plan to state what you've done, what you plan on doing, and what blockers you're facing. Um, this is actually like really important because let's say um, everything in software there is a fixed timeline. So let's say you're stuck on something, you have to let your team know that you're stuck on that so you can get help ASAP. Also, like let's say you're falling sick, like me, um, and you're not going to be able to work. Your team needs to know that you're not going to be able to work, and someone is going to have to pick up that work. Next we just have sprint reviews and sprint retrospective, and that's sprint retrospective is just where you look back at the sprint, you discuss with your team what went well, what went bad, and what could be improved on. And yes, lastly we have conventions and practices. So naming branches, this is important. I hope everyone's been following this so far. So the one we've been following is just I with the issue number hyphen with the issue description. And meaningful commit messages. So hope everyone has visited conventional commits. If you haven't, please do. I think it does help with naming commits because a lot of times I find that I don't really know what to write before I found that. And yes, please push code regularly. So this actually helps your team keep track on the progress that you've made. Also, like if there is like your thing crashes or you forget to save, you know for sure that at least it's been saved in GitHub. And yes, please voice out blockers early during stand-ups so we can get help soon. Yep, and that's it for the software um, engineering practices workshop, guys. Thank you.